Beautiful day to be here today. God is so good. He is so amazing to us. As Joni mentioned this morning, what a Presbyterian meeting we had yesterday. It was full of emotional ups and downs. It was just a roller coaster kind of going back and forth. I did want to mention, other than what Joni has mentioned this morning, one other item that came up yesterday, and it was amazing. It was a quick vote. There was no discussion. There was no dissension. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. But we voted as Covenant Presbytery to accept the unification of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church and the Cumberland Presbyterian Church of America.
Yes.
Praise God. Now, we'll have to wait to see what the other presbyteries do and what happens at General Assembly next year. But the one thing that I thought maybe there would be some discussion about, it was completely unanimous and there was nothing. It was just everybody accepted the unification and we went forward from there. So it was a beautiful, beautiful happening at Covenant Presbytery yesterday. With that being said, let us go to God in prayer before we dive into our message today. Gracious and holy God, we are so thankful to be with you today. To be able to gather together as this fellowship of believers to lift you up in word, to lift you up in song, to lift our prayers to your feet, Lord, to know that you hear them, to know that you care, to know that you've counted every hair on our heads, to know that you will never leave us nor forsake us. Lord, if that isn't something worth blessing, I don't know what is. If you aren't someone worth worshiping, I can't imagine what could be. Father, this morning as we read your word, please open us up. Help us to receive the message that you have prepared for us. Help us to penetrate the very inner core of our beings. Transform us, change us, use us in a way that you would be glorified and edified in everything that we say and do. Lord, this morning I pray every word from my mouth is yours and not mine. In Jesus' name, amen. Luke chapter 6 is where we are today. Luke chapter 6. We're continuing with our Jesus Says series. Luke chapter 6, starting in verse 27. Here are the words of Jesus. But I say to you who hear, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? I lost my spot. For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to get back the same amount. But love your enemies, and do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. how to care about people, how to be merciful with your attitude, to be kind with your words. But here he calls us to a higher personal ethic and personal moral that in society we are taught contrary. In society, we are taught eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But Jesus here is calling us to a higher ethic. He's telling us, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Do good to those that hate you. Who in here has siblings? Remember those fights you got into when you were kids?
It was her fault.
How easy was it to do good to someone who hated you? When they picked on you, when they tormented you, when they tortured you, you didn't want to be good. You didn't want to be nice. You wanted to get them back. Now, my sister and I are about 3.5 years apart. And if she's watching this, I apologize. I love you. But she was a real girly girl, okay? I was not. I was definitely the tomboy end of the spectrum. I like to be outside. I like to play with bugs. I like to go hunting. I like to go fishing. Every time I invited her to come outside, if she saw a bug on the back porch, she'd scream and run back in the house. Ah! You know. So she always had Barbie dolls. And she loved her Barbie dolls. She had the Barbie house. And she had the little Barbie car and the little Barbie pool. I had Hot Wheels and big trucks. So when she wanted me to play, I would, because I'm the wonderful older sister that I should have been. And so we would play, and she would have all of her Barbies, and I'd take my trucks, and I'd run them over. I'm like, ah, kill the Barbies, kill the Barbies. She didn't like me. I was not always kind. I was not always nice. And she would get me back in very vicious and cruel ways, in which I couldn't say anything to my mother because I knew I would get tackled on. Doing good to those that hate you. Loving those. I have to be honest in saying that our relationship growing up wasn't the best. 3.5 years apart, extremely different personalities, we didn't always get along. And it really wasn't until we became adults that her and I came to respect and love each other. And I really care about her. And I know she really cares about me. But it's taken some time to get there. Loving others who hate you. You may be in a workplace, at school, maybe at home, family members. God calls us here. Jesus tells us to love our enemies, to do good to those who hate you. This kind of love is that agape love that Jesus often talks about, that unconditional, that universal, without question, without judgment love that Jesus offers every one of us. That Jesus cares about us right where we are. No matter what we've done, no matter what mistakes that we have made, no matter what's going on in our head, no matter what has happened to us in the past, he offers us unconditional grace and mercy and love. And he is telling the followers here to do the same. He is telling us here that you are being called as a personal ethic, a personal moral to a higher standing than anything in society will offer you. That anyone in society will share with you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. He goes on in the latter part of this scripture reading and he says, if you love only those who love you, what benefit is it? If you care for only those who care for you, what benefit is planet, care for the ones that care for them, love the ones that love them, but he again calling these to a higher personal standing. But I say to you, love those who hate you. Be kind to the ungrateful. Be merciful even as your Father is merciful. I want to share with you some examples from history. R.C. Sproul, who was a great American theologian, he says, love rather is a duty, a requirement. Love has more to do with activity than it has to do with feeling. Again, that agape love. It is not that passionate, oh, I love you so much. It is not that friendship type of love where you love your friends, the ones that you care about and care about you. It is the agape love. A duty of those who profess Christ. A duty to love those who hate us. Mahatma Gandhi said, whenever you are confronted with an opponent, conquer him with love. Love our enemies. Bless those who curse you. You all know the story of Martin Luther King Jr. You know the story of the marches that were held, the nonviolent stand that he took. He says, men must see that force begets force. Hate begets hate. Toughness begets toughness. It is all a descending spiral, ultimately ending in destruction for all and everybody. Somebody must have sense enough and morality enough to cut off the chain of hate and the chain of evil in the universe. And you do that by loving your enemies. Blessing those who curse you. I want to share with you another story. Some of you know that I have traveled overseas a few different times. On one of my travels, I visited Auschwitz. Auschwitz is a concentration camp for the Jews that is right outside of Krakow, Poland. And if you've ever been to a concentration camp, it is a very sombering place to be. Even at the tender age of 17, I understood the gravity of the situation of what I was walking upon, that those rocks underneath my feet, the gravel in between, were ashes of the deceased. Those killed in a horrific manner, ripped from their families, persecuted because of their nationality. I want to tell you, sister, about Eva and her twin sister Miriam. A story, excuse me. Eva and Miriam, they were transported from their home in Ports, which is now part of Hungary. They were Jews. Along with their father, their mother, and their two older sisters. They were taken from their home, put on a cattle train, and taken to Auschwitz, outside of Krakow, Poland. Upon arriving, I'm sure you all have seen the pictures and the videos, Eva and Miriam were separated from their family. They were separated from their family because they were twins. Their family, their mother, their father, and their two older sisters all died in the gas chamber there in Auschwitz. But now Eva and Miriam were special. Because they were twins, they were kept for experiments that were being done on twins by Dr. Joseph Mengele. The New York Times quoted Eva as saying, "They took blood from one arm and gave us injections in the other. After one such injection, I became very ill and I was taken to the hospital. If I had died, Mengele would have given Miriam a lethal injection in order to do a double autopsy. When I didn't die, he carried on experimenting with us. And as a result, Miriam's kidneys stopped growing. They remained the size of a child's all of her life." The girls survived Auschwitz. They were later liberated. Eva later married and had children of her own. Her sister Miriam, the one with the kidneys the size of a child, died in 1993 from cancer. Probably from all the chemicals she was introduced to as a 10-year-old little girl. Eva, however, lived on. In fact, she just passed from the world this year, July 4th, 2019, and she was again in Krakow, Poland. She died in her hotel room because she went back to Krakow and she gave tours to young people of the concentration camp Auschwitz. She was 85 years old. Eva lived an astonishing life because she chose forgiveness. Eva was persecuted and criticized by other Holocaust survivors because publicly she forgave Dr. Hans Munch, who was acquitted of his war crimes, but he was a former doctor at Auschwitz. She also publicly forgave Oskar Groening, who was a former SS sergeant, who was accused and found guilty of being complicit in the murder of 300,000 people. When asked why she forgives, the Telegraph quoted Eva as saying, "Why survive it all if what you want is to be sad, angry, and hurting? That is so foreign to who I am. I don't understand why the world is so much more willing to accept lashing out in anger rather than embracing friendship and humanity." Jesus tells us to love our enemies, to do good to those who hate us, to bless those who curse us, and to pray for those who abuse us. I'm going to close with a reading from Luke chapter 23, verses 34 through 43. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And they cast lots to divide his garments. And the people stood by, watching, but the rulers scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself. If he is the Christ of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the King of Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." If anyone needs prayer this morning, the altar is open. Let us sing.